Let's talk about each of the factions in 40k, and put them on a tier list, because honestly these videos are a wonderful combination of really fun and really easy to make. Before we get into the video, I do just want to quickly thank my channel members: Vort, Cersei, Victory Kaiser, Kraydog, Jewish Dictionary, Tootsie Catch Meow, Nicholas, Imondo and SP Keating for supporting me, as well as ask you, if you haven't already, to like, subscribe and maybe leave a comment. It really does help smaller channels like mine more than you probably expect. Anyway, on with the video. Okay, so what I've done for this is I've gone onto the Warhammer web store without buying anything, which is quite frankly unprecedented, and I've taken most of the sub-factions that have their own model ranges on that website, and it's those that I'm going to be ranking today. The reason that I've done it this way is that hopefully this video, as well as being relatively entertaining background listening, will function as something of an introduction to the lore of each faction, and will maybe help some of you with picking a faction to read more into, if you haven't already. I have condensed some of them down, such as on this you can see Black Templar, Blood Angels, Dark Angels. Those are just going to be counted as Space Marines for the purpose of this, as a Death Watch, and Death Guard, World Eaters, Thousand Suns are just going to be counted as Chaos Space Marines. So I'm not going to be putting these on the tier list, but they were on the template that I found, so and I don't know how this website works, so I can't get rid of them. Anyway, starting with the Space Marines. The most recognisable faction in all of 40k, arguably. They are the poster boys of the entire setting. The idea of like monastic knightly orders is undeniably really cool. It's a great concept. There's enough variety within this faction with all the different chapters that basically anything you want you will be able to find just in Space Marines. There'll be probably a chapter around it. They've got great homebrew potential with, again, you can make your own chapter, but that applies to basically every faction, so that shouldn't really be a point for or against them. They can get quite boring to paint because they're like so simple, but you know, with that they're really easy to paint. They're probably the best faction to learn any given painting technique. Like if you want to edge highlight, they've got loads of edges. If you want to get more into volumetric highlights, they're made of really nice simple shapes that you can really easily highlight. They're going in S tier. They're not quite S+, but we'll get on to who I think are S+ later. You can probably guess based on my profile picture, but they're pretty good. They are pretty good. Moving on to the Adepta sororitas, the nuns with guns as they're affectionately referred to within the fandom. They have some really nice Catholic themes going on if you're into that. They have honestly some of the coolest models in the entire setting, especially the tanks and like penitent engines. They're great models. Unfortunately, they do use the fleur-de-lis a lot, which does indicate the existence of France in the grim darkness of the far future, but I can look past that. They have a really nice mix, like on the models, of nice clean armour that's similarly easy to highlight as Space Marines. They've got cloth, leather, skin. They're really fun to paint, if a bit small for my terrible eyesight. I do like them, but I don't like them quite as much as Space Marines. They don't do it as much for me, unfortunately, so they are going in A tier. A solid A tier. Next up, the Banana Boys. They are in dire need of a model refresh, in my opinion. They're like, the models are great, they look amazing, but they're just slightly too small compared to like Primaris. Like some Custodes models are smaller than Primaris Marines, which is weird. They're one of the easiest factions to paint. You can just prime them gold, give them a wash, quick dry brush, you're basically 90% done. Their lore is a bit boring to me personally, but the whole bodyguards and companions of the corpse chair guy is suitably grimdark if that's your thing. They're fine. They're probably one of the least interesting factions for me, just in general, so I'm gonna put them in C tier. I don't hate them. I don't really hate any faction except these guys. But yeah, they're going down there. Now we're really getting somewhere. I love the AdMech. They have impeccable vibes and an amazing range of models, even though the Horus Heresy stuff is just undeniably better. There has been so much stuff for Horus Heresy released that would be great for 40k Adamec, but anyway. They are a bit shit on the tabletop, last I checked. I don't play that competitively, I don't play with anyone who plays Admech, but I don't remember them being very good, and I remember them being a bit too, like, hoardy for what they are in the lore, which also makes them incredibly expensive. I think they might be one of, if not the most expensive army. You'd have to check with Auspex Tactics for certain, but I feel pretty confident in saying they're up there. They are great fun to paint. I love these models. They can be quite easy. You can just spray them silver and dry brush them, and then like paint in the cloth and you're pretty much there. But you do have room to go really above and beyond with the models. They're amazing sculpts. With that being said, they are a bit fiddly, both to assemble and like just hold and paint, because they're quite small and they've got loads of spiky, fragile bits. So I wouldn't want to transport them anywhere, but just in terms of lore and how the models look, they are easily S tier. I could be tempted to put them in S+. I'm going to put them in S+ for now. We might move them down later. They're in S in my notes, but I've convinced myself of S+. The Astra militarum are kind of just like guys, like they're just the normal unaugmented humans armed with kind of mass-produced basic lasguns. I get the appeal of that, of being, you know, a normal human in a galaxy filled with genetically modified superhumans and aliens and 10-foot-tall mushroom men. I understand why people would like them. For me personally, just kind of having normal guys in a setting filled with so many fun, cool factions just seems a bit boring. The tanks are cool, so they're going above custodes, I think, just for the tanks. But like I would put them low because I find them boring, but that reason that I find them boring would bring a lot of people to put them in S or S+. But this is my tier list, so we're doing what I want, so they're going in C. For Imperial agents, the Inquisition, which is part of that faction, is obviously one of the most iconic parts of 40k in terms of lore, in terms of books, in terms of memes. It's definitely up there. The Assassins and the Deathwatch, who are also within this, it's a bit of a weird one. The Deathwatch also have their own codex, but they're also in this. The Deathwatch are weird, but they're both cool. Although the Deathwatch probably shouldn't count for the purposes of this list. I suppose they should count as Space Marines. Anyway, they're also kind of dog shit on the tabletop, last I checked, but they're good to like ally in for Space Marines, and Knights especially do really well with allied assassins. The kill team's pretty cool. The kill team with the dog, I do like that kill team. So they're going above Sisters of Battle, but they're not as cool as Space Marines, not even close. The Imperial Knights are very close to being an S for me personally, but I can't help but feel like there is another faction that does exactly what the Imperial Knights do, but cooler and more fun. So I think they're just going to have to go into A. With that being said, they are giant walking tanks with cathedrals on their heads, so they're going pretty high on the list. I also cannot think of a book that included a Knight Legion and a Knight Princeps where they weren't just one of the best characters in the entire book. So the Knights are cool. I'm assuming we're counting Titans in the Knights faction, because that's how the tabletop works, I think. I've never actually looked into Knights at all, but Titans are cooler than Knights, but Knights are fine, so they're going in A. The Sentient Emotions are often a very fun antagonist in the books they show up in, even if the Slaneshi ones are often a bit one note. But they are probably soon to be removed as a standalone army and just rolled into the Monogod legions, like the Khorne Demons will go to World Eaters, the Tzeentch ones will go to Thousand Sons. That's kind of pretty likely to happen relatively soon. They do have some really fun models, both in terms of like how they look and just painting them. They have really big, cool centerpiece models, but they're also just kind of, as a whole, a bit less fun than the Monogod legions. Like, I'd much rather collect World Eaters or Thousand Sons than demons, so I'm not too bothered by the whole imminent removal thing, and I think I'm going to put them in C. Like, I just much rather do a Monogod, so yeah. For the Chaos Knights, everything I said about the normal Knights and normal Titans being cool applies here, but they also just are cooler because Chaos is cooler than the Imperium. They have extra spikes, they have extra cool decorations, just more bits, more detail, more fun. They're going in S. I love Chaos things. In a similar vein, Chaos Space Marines are to normal Space Marines what Chaos Knights are to Imperial Knights. They're the same thing, but they're cooler, so they are my favourite faction in the entire setting. They're going at the top of S+. The only downside to them as a faction is the amount of trim on the models. It's absolutely hellish. But with that, you do get the upside that a Chaos Legionary who has been base coated and washed and just left and not highlighted will look a lot better on the table than a Primaris Marine who has had the same treatment, because you get a lot better panel separation with the trim. You'll often paint those in metallics as well, which will do a better job of reflecting. So you can kind of get around the trim, making you spend 17 hours on a model, but it does take forever. It is the worst part of those models, even if it does look really cool in the end. Moving on to the Xenos factions, the Aeldari are Tolkien's elves but in space, with all the connotations that comes with. They are a dying empire, they are aloof and think themselves better than the rest of the empire, they are kind of technologically advanced but really low in number. They have a nice model range, if a bit boring for me personally. I think they are pretty much the definition of a B-tier faction, as far as I'm concerned. The Drukhari are the Aeldari, but cooler. They are definitely evil. They are almost irredeemably evil, if you're into that. They have a lovely model range, even though most of them are older than I am. The Maelstrom box that came out recently with the Reavers and Hellions got recalled and fucked me over, because I bought one, got home with it, opened it, and I didn't have my Hellions, so I'm a bit annoyed at them because of that. They are really nice and simple to paint if you really enjoy edge highlighting. They're really nice and easy to edge highlight, but there are a lot of edges, and that's kind of your only option. You can't really volumetrically highlight a Drukhari model because there's no room for that. They're just teeny tiny plates on teeny tiny models, but you do get some opportunities for really fun freehands on their vehicles. I'll put up some of my favourite examples that I found from the internet because I am obsessed with the way people paint a Drukhari. I love it to bits. They're going in A. I can't. They might. I'm thinking. I put them in A in my notes, but they might be an S tier faction. I do really like them. I think they're going in S. I will revisit that. The Genestealer cults are the Imperial Guard, but more fun because of the added alien cosmic horror. They are even more normal guys than these normal guys, because most of them don't even have military training. They're just kind of construction workers who have fucked aliens. I do like them though. The models are fine. Like most of the models are pretty cool, but like Genestealers are just so goofy looking. Like the actual Genestealers themselves are so goofy. But yeah, they're fine. They're better than Aeldari. They're fine. The Leagues of Votann are Tolkien's dwarves in space. Like, what's not to love about that? Also, the Ironkin are adorable. Look him in his little ball-bearing head and tell him he deserves to go anywhere other than S. You can't do it. You can't do it. The Infinite and the Divine and the Twice Dead King duology are some of my absolute favourite pieces of 40k literature. I love them to bits. The Necrons as a race are just robot Egyptians in space, which is cool. They are also, if you look beneath the surface of them, absolutely horrifying. They are people who have been stuffed into robot bodies with none of the associated human instincts such as breathing or eating, etc. And that they can't acknowledge that. They can't acknowledge the fact that they can't breathe, because then they freak out, as you would, and go mental. So they're pretty grimdark. They're up there if that's your thing. They have an incredible model range, and that model range is exceptionally easy to paint. They're similar to custodes, where you can just paint them to a pretty decent tabletop level in about 2 minutes, but you can still paint them if you want to do them fully in non-metallic metal if you were insane. You have a lot of room to push yourself, but you can also get them tabletop ready in seconds. I'm going to put them in S, but I'm also going to have to move Drukhari down, just because I think 5 people in S is a bit too much. The Orks are an entire race made up completely and utterly a football hooligans. They they have an almost infinite range to kitbash. You can take stuff from pretty much any other faction and make it an orc unit somehow. They're wonderful for that. The old boys kit is one of the best kits Games Workshop have ever made. There's so many fun little bits in that. I love that kit to pieces. If you don't like painting skin, they're probably not for you, I'll be honest. There's quite a lot of that, especially considering that they're a horde army, so you will be painting a lot of orc models. But I personally quite like painting skin, so I'm going to put them in A. They're going to go above knights. They're going to go at the top of A. The Tau are just Gundam, but in 40k, so if you like Gundam, then I have a faction for you. I'm honestly not such a huge fan of the models, but the lore is pretty fun, and they are also my partner's favourite faction because she thinks they're cute. So they're going in A to save my relationship, but they are going at the bottom of A because I don't really like them that much. They're fine. Nom nom nom. Nom nom nom. So that is my personal ranking of each of the factions. Hopefully you found it entertaining and maybe even informative. If you've made it this far in the video, thank you so much. It really does mean a lot. Like, subscribe, all the rest. A huge thank you again to my wonderful channel members, and I will see you all in the next video.